Hello friends, and welcome to a special edition of Jim's EV Adventures. Today, as you can tell from the title, I'm going to take on the politics of electric vehicles. This will likely divide my audience right down the middle, those who prefer the Republican Party, those who prefer the Democrat Party. Why is this the case? Why does that happen in America? Let's look into this in a little more detail. Okay guys, I'm going to make a general observation here first. There tends to be a trend away from EVs by the Republican Party in support of fossil fuel automobiles, and the trend towards EVs by the Democratic Party, but there are exceptions across the board. This is because both parties have made the issue about the environment, and both have tied it positively and negatively to the great climate change debate, with Democrats favoring and Republicans strongly opposing the Green New Deal. Both are right and both are wrong. We simply cannot turn off the fossil fuel spigot overnight, but we cannot afford financially or environmentally to continue drilling and burning like there is no tomorrow. There is a happy medium. First, let me address the issue of climate change. I'm going to present you with scientifically undeniable evidence. The climate is provably warming, and the rate of warming has accelerated since 1990. If you want to see how much it warmed, here are 4 locations where I took the maximum and minimum temperature observations from the National Climatic Data Center. I ran them through a simple Excel spreadsheet, added a simple trend line, and you can clearly see these 4 locations have warmed between 1.4 and 4.6 degrees Fahrenheit since 1960. I challenge anyone to try to disprove this data. I further dare anyone to choose any single station anywhere on Earth that has observations from 1960 to present and run the same analysis. And I will bet you $100 to a donut that there has been some level of warming, and the closer the station to the poles, the North Pole or South Pole, the greater degree of warming you will see. There is a law of physics that explains that phenomena, but I will not get into that in this video. This is hard evidence of global warming and a warming trend in our atmosphere. Couple this with the fact that the glaciers all over the world are disappearing faster than donuts at a police convention, and you have ground truth. Undeniable. So we know the climate is warming, but the Democrats' Green New Deal cannot fix the problem because the price would drive us into a Great Depression that would make the one in the 1930s look like a day at the park. You talk about a zombie apocalypse, implement the Green New Deal and you'll have one. On the opposite end of that spectrum, using the Republican strategy of sitting around with your thumb up your butt and waiting to see what happens is just as dumb. There has to be a happy medium, and there is. As older cars die a natural death, replace them with greener cars. And that points to the EV. Period. End of sentence. Debate complete, right? Well, more importantly, the problem would be solved with this, but it's never going to happen that easily. In addition to replacing older cars with EVs, we need to end our reliance on fossil fuels to generate electricity. There's a great big nuclear fusion reactor in the sky that we call the sun that provides enough energy in 10 minutes to power our entire world for the next year. Solar, wind, hydro, and battery storage solves our electrical needs forever, but it takes effort. Then, and only then, we can use the remaining oil reserves that we have to build roads, make plastics, and other synthetics, and never have to worry about running out because eventually we will have extracted enough that through recycling we will not need to mine any more oil. As for coal, let it stay buried. We do not need coal at all. Now let's look at another aspect of the politics of EVs. Here we have a video of 2 senators arguing about the negativity of the minerals that are mined to go into EVs. Specifically, Senator Hawley, Republican of Missouri, points out that 54% of the world's EVs are manufactured in China. And yes, they are, but they don't come to America now, do they? Because we don't import Chinese EVs. And here in the USA, when a company tries to move to manufacturing EVs, the fossil fuels industry, which is subsidized by the U.S. government at a higher rate than EVs and has been for over 100 years, they poison the politicians to make it difficult for them to make decisions regarding EVs, and they force them into putting laws into place that effectively prevent us from mining the minerals we need to make batteries, while simultaneously opening up more places where coal and oil destroy the environment. How sensible is that? It's absolutely dumb. And furthermore, the fossil fuels industry poisons the minds of the weak-minded in our population, both Democrat and Republican constituents, into believing that EVs pollute more, cost more, break down more, and will not last as long as a comparable internal combustion engine car. And that is provably, 100% provably, a bald-faced lie. On this channel, I have proven in more than one video that the EV is cheaper to operate and maintain than any ICE car in the same class. Please go back and watch a few of those. I will not reiterate what I already know to be true in this video. I have proven it to myself. And my challenge still stands. If you can prove scientifically, financially, and factually that an ICE car is better for the pocketbook, better for the environment, and better for daily use than an EV, I will sell both of my EVs and publicly acknowledge that I have been wrong about everything and everything that I've ever said advocating for the electric vehicle. Period. Prove it. Don't try to do it in the comments. And before some keyboard genius pops off there, don't try that in my comments. You can't. Instead, I suggest you build your own channel and back it up with 3,000 plus hours of research, hundreds of hours of video editing, and tens of thousands of views. And at the same time, state your sources, build your math, and I say to you plainly and simply, put up or shut up. It's as simple as that. Now let's get back to the politics. Now to the politics. I'm going to summarize my political identity once and for all. I am an American. I do not identify myself as a Republican or Democrat first, because those monikers are choices. But being an American is a blessing. It is something that I take great pride in, regardless of those things that seem to divide us. As someone who has literally been around the world more than one time, I can tell you of all the countries I have ever visited, and I've been to over 40 countries, there is none like the good old US of A. Yes, we have our freckles. Yes, we have our zits. Yes, we have our open wounds. We have a good side to our history, and we have a dark side to our history. But the one thing that these things cannot portray to the world is the overall goodness and generosity of our nation. When disaster happens, who is the first nation on the scene to provide relief? The USA is. And we have been blessed because of our rich generosity. But then every 4 years, our politicians start bloviating and doing things, everything they can, to divide us into two separate peoples and ideologies. They do this because they know that a divided people are easier to control and manipulate. This two-party system, Democrats and Republicans, used to be more conciliatory towards each other. Now it's just become a vulgar and hateful mudfest, and I'm sick of it. So I identify as American, not Republican, not Democrat. The two-party system has done more to divide this nation in the past 20 to 30 years than any other hate organization in our history. With that statement, let me say this, and it may come to a surprise to some of you. Neither of the two parties is perfect. But again, I am an American. I'm an American by birth, I remain American by choice, and I will stay American until my death. Now let's move on. Let's talk about one of my favorite issues. The issue of the government is forcing me to drive an EV and I will not be told what to buy by the government. Just stop it, people. I want to point out that nobody in the government can ever stop you from using the road system in the USA. However, for the good of the public at large, we do extend the privilege of operating a motor vehicle on the road to only those who have trained and passed certain uniform standards and been given a driver license. So from that perspective, using the road is a right, but driving on that road is a privilege. If you want to drive your horse and buggy, you can, but you will need to put an orange diamond on the back of the buggy. If you don't, you will be arrested for violating legitimate traffic laws. But let's look at the reality of the standards that are directing automakers towards the battery electric vehicle. It is called the CAFE standard, which stands for Corporate Average Fuel Economy, and it's been around since 1975. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, sets the CAFE standards for passenger cars and for light trucks, collectively known together as light-duty vehicles, and separately they set fuel consumption standards for medium and heavy-duty trucks and engines that burn fossil fuels. NHTSA also regulates the fuel economy window stickers on new vehicles. That is the fuel economy portion of the Mulroney sticker that you see on every new car. Let's look at a brief history of the CAFE standard. It was first enacted by the United States Congress in 1975 after the 1973-74 Arab oil embargo on the United States, and that was done to help improve the average economy of cars and light trucks produced for sale in the United States. If you ever had to sit in line for your 10-gallon allotment for fuel in 1973, you will understand why this law was implemented. In 1973, the average MPG for cars and trucks was only 11.5 miles per gallon. By 1977, it had increased to 19 miles per gallon for the total fleet. Between 1985 and 2005, it leveled out at 25 miles per gallon. And between 2005 and 2018, total fleet MPG only improved by 9 miles per gallon to 34 miles per gallon. In order to get around some of these standards, the automakers and oil companies began slowly but surely indoctrinating buyers to go big and buy vehicles that could be classified as light trucks to get around the increasing MPG requirements for cars. In 1975, the mix was 80% cars and 20% light trucks. By 2021, the mix is 62% light trucks to 38% cars. Do you see what they did there? Like the proverbial frog in the pot of boiling water, the USA citizen has been boiled into thinking their gas-guzzling F-150 is better for the world than the F-150 Lightning. Let's look year by year. In 1980, the CAFE standards were 20 miles per gallon for domestic and imported cars and 15 miles per gallon for light trucks. By 1990, 26 mpg for cars and 20 mpg for trucks. But by 2000, it had only gone up to 27.5 miles per gallon for cars and 20.7 miles per gallon for trucks. What a pathetic change, and most of that decade was under Democrat controls. By 2010, there was no change for cars, and trucks only increased to 23.4 miles per gallon, and most of that decade was Democrats and Republicans together. By 2020, the standards have now changed to 42.4 miles per gallon for cars and 31 miles per gallon for trucks. Since the mid-2010s, passenger cars and light trucks have been further subdivided into more categories, 3 for passenger cars and 4 for light trucks. And I'll discuss those in just a little more detail. The standards have to do with how many square feet a car covers when looking at it from the top towards the ground. Cars under 41 square feet, then cars 41 to 49 square feet, and then cars 49 to 51 square feet are the 3 standards for cars. And then trucks are 41 square feet, then 54 square feet, 67 square feet, and 74 square feet for the big extended cab trucks with 8-foot beds. Car makers really didn't improve the MPG for any of these cars, but in order to meet the standards for the model years in the middle 2010s, many automakers made what they called compliance cars by converting existing gas-powered cars into electric vehicles. This included models like the Fiat 500e, the Chevrolet Spark, and the Ford Focus. And those three models were converted from gas-powered to electric vehicles to make the compliance with the MPG standards possible. For every 0.1 mile per gallon the CAFE fleet MPG is under the CAFE standard, the automaker can be fined $14 per unit per 0.1 mile per gallon across the fleet, and that price gets added to the price the consumer must pay for that car. Stellantis was fined $363 million in 2022 under this rule. All automakers have received fines, and it is ultimately the consumer, you and I, who pay those fines. In 2018, NHTSA unlawfully delayed the implementation of the new standards on several occasions. That was under President Trump, and he has vowed to do the same if he is reelected, but I digress. So will the Democrats. They have no choice because they are controlled by the fossil fuels industry. In this short video, I have shown everyone that the climate is provably warming. Anyone who tells you differently is lying to you, plain and simple. You can test my observations if you wish. Find a point on Earth, any point on Earth, where the temperature has been measured daily for the past 50 to 60 years, and I will absolutely guarantee you that you will see the warming trend that I've shown in this video. If you can prove otherwise, and you have something other than the information that is tainted by the fossil fuel industry, I am open-minded enough to listen. But let's face it, you will not find it if you are true to the scientific principles of unbiased analysis. In this video, I have shown you how divided our nation is over the EV issue, and that the EV is nothing more than a car that doesn't burn fossil fuels. Even if it is charged with electricity generated by fossil fuels, it is cleaner than the tailpipe emissions that your gas car will generate over the life of the vehicle. Our politicians keep on playing the same old games with the issue of petroleum and electric vehicles, and they stir up disputes about the implementation of the EV by openly providing subsidies to the EV industry and to EV owners. All the while, they are silently covering up the billions upon billions of dollars that they use to subsidize the fossil fuel industry with every year, as they have done for the past 100 years. It is maddening that the average citizen is unaware of the fossil fuel subsidies, and only the subsidies that come back to the individual citizen as a tax break for buying an EV are questioned and called out by the brainwashed anti-EV zealots who are manipulated by the fossil fuel cartels. Giving a citizen a tax break should be celebrated, but in a nation where the term fair share is bandied about like an amen in church, and celebrated with as much vigor, the division continues. Sadly, the truth about EVs and clean energy can only be understood by someone who has taken the time to logically evaluate those technologies, and most people have not. But the good news is, most people are not on the extreme ends of the spectrum. Most people are neither pro-EV or anti-EV. They're just going about their lives trying to make ends meet and making their way in the world, taking care of and loving their families. They are in the middle. The CAFE standards are there to protect the natural resources, not restrict your movement and force you to buy an EV. If they can make their fleet minimum mile per gallon requirements using ICE cars alone, then go for it. We know they can, but the question is, will they? And like it or not, about all of this, the truth is always somewhere in the middle. So the politics of EVs should be discussed openly and intelligently by everyone from all walks of life and all political persuasions. The politics of EVs should be handed over to the American people, who are capable of looking at the facts and making choices about what they want to drive. As an EV advocate, I don't fear giving people a choice. Those on the extreme end of the ICE vehicle spectrum and the extreme end of the EV spectrum do fear giving people a choice. That is why there is so much anti-EV sentiment on social media and in the media in general, because there is a perception that our EV drivers are being propped up by government subsidies, and the fact is ICE vehicle drivers get more subsidies over the life of their cars through government incentives to fossil fuel industries than the next 10 million EV owners will ever get. All you have to do is sit down and do the math. That's a fact, and you can take that fact to the bank. Not one person or one single party will determine whether the EV is successful in displacing the ICE car as the standard in America. It will not be Donald Trump. It will not be Kamala Harris. It will not be the Republicans. It will not be the Democrats. The choice is up to the good and intelligent people of the USA, who will take the time to examine the issues surrounding EVs and clean energy and make an informed decision about their future, provided they are presented with all the facts, and therein lies the real problem. The facts are often hidden within the lies from the political extremists and the ignorant, or in some cases, the deliberately deceitful media as controlled by the fossil fuels cartels. But when presented with the facts, Americans will always come down on the side of what is good and best for our nation. We've done that for almost 250 years, and in the end, when everyone has all the facts and knows all the truth about EVs and clean energy, information that is willfully and deceptively being hidden or misrepresented by the fossil fuels industry and their crony organizations, when that happens, I'm convinced that the ICE car will become a thing of the past, much like the horse and buggy has, with the exception of those few backwards communities that refuse to embrace a horseless carriage. This is my politics, and these are my firm beliefs. And this is where I have to tell you, you will never know my true political bend. You can speculate and guess, but you only have a 10% chance of getting it right, because who I vote for and who I support in the political arena is a private matter between me and my maker. Only my closest friends and family know my true political bend. And that is the politics of the electric vehicle here at Jim's EV Adventures. In the end, it will not be decided by the divisive, deliberately deceptive organizations, but it will be ultimately decided by the American people with their pocketbooks, not a room full of political scientists with their mouthpiece bureaucrats in the government. By you and by me. We have the decision to make, and we need to make the proper decision based on the facts. That's what this channel is about, providing you with the facts. I would like to thank you very much for stopping by today. Please do remember to subscribe, share, comment, and like, and ring the notification bell so you'll know when we've uploaded something new. Remember, treat everyone with kindness, put a smile on your face, help someone today, and pay it forward when someone does the same for you. Again, thank you very much for stopping by today. We look forward to seeing you again in the very near future, or somewhere along the route from point A to point B. Take it easy, everybody. See you all real soon.